Good morning and welcome to News Conference Extra, a special segment of Today in LA Weekend. I'm Conan Nolan. This past week, Facebook announced it will not allow any new political ads on its site 1 week before the November 3rd election. Part of what the company says is its effort to fight foreign interference. This is ABC News first reports that the Russian government is trying to foment doubts about mail-in balloting. Congressman Adam Schiff is chair of the House Intelligence Committee. His district includes Burbank, Pasadena, and Glendale. So, Congressman, is that true? The Russians now focusing less on who gets elected, but on undermining the confidence in the fairness of the election?
No, it's really both objectives. And indeed, these were the same two objectives 4 years ago. They wanted to sow discord in the United States and pit Americans against other Americans. But they also wanted to pick our next president. So they got heavily involved in supporting Donald Trump and attacking Hillary Clinton. Well, 4 years later, it's very much the same methodology and the same objects. They are trying to sow discord. They're trying to amplify the president's false claims about absentee balloting and not being a safe way to vote. But they're also trying to help Donald Trump and denigrate Joe Biden and attack Joe Biden and try to smear his mental health using some of the very same attacks that Donald Trump is using. So they have both objectives once again.
What role is China in playing in all this? The president, the attorney general, Barr, they say that that government's trying to elect Joe Biden.
You know, it's interesting because there's a very big difference between what China is doing vis-a-vis the elections and what Russia is doing. And what Trump is saying, and Barr, and to some degree, even the head of the intelligence agencies, Ratcliffe, is just plain misleading and wrong, and deliberately so. China has a preference for who wins. Russia is actively intervening to make their preference the next president of the United States. There's a big difference between the two. The difference, in more plain terms is you may have a preference about who you want to be the next president, but if you're not actively involved in working to make it so, that's one thing. But if you're using covert means and overt means and hacking and social media, false flag operations, there's only one country that is actively engaged in that way, and that is Russia. So when they tell Americans something different, when they suggest, no, China's a bigger threat, that really just incentivizes the Russians to do more because it tells them, the American president is too weak to call Putin out. They can do whatever they want, and they'll just be lumped in with a bunch of other countries. That's a real disservice to our democracy, and it's very misleading to the American people.
So have the Russians become more sophisticated this time over their efforts in 2016?
They are, in the sense that they are, I think, more skillfully trying to hide their hand. In 2016, they had this, what was called the IRA, this social media troll farm in St. Petersburg. And for a long time, they used the same IP addresses so they could be identified, and you could tell even though they were masquerading as something else or setting up these false personas in the United States. They set up a group called Black Matters 4 years ago to mimic Black Lives Matter. They are doing some of the same things today, but they're using cutouts. They're going to third countries to try to hide their hand.
So the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, has said he will no longer brief your committee in person on intelligence regarding the election and foreign interference. But he said he'll send a report on their findings. Mr. Ratcliffe says that certain elements of previous briefings have been leaked for political purposes. Do you acknowledge that? And if so, what effort has been made to stop the leaking of that intelligence? And can you compel Mr. Ratcliffe to show up in person?
Well, first of all, I think this is completely a bogus pretext for canceling hearings for Congress. And you can tell that it's a bogus pretext because after the last round of briefings, and I'm not aware of what they're referring to leaked from these prior briefings, but after the last round of briefings, John Ratcliffe's office contacted us to set up the next round of briefings. So if that was true, then why were they setting up the next round of briefings? This is an after-the-fact rationalization. And I think what's happening here is what we've seen before, which is when Director McGuire was leading the intelligence community, he had our committee briefed on Russian interference to try to help the Trump campaign. And when the president found out about it, because Republican members of the committee went directly from that hearing apparently to the White House to complain that we were being briefed, the president fired the director. So now the new director, more malleable, known only for being a Trump loyalist, is doing the president's bidding. And the danger with it, Conan, is that, as we have seen, documents can be withheld. We learned this week that a document that the intelligence community agency at the Department of Homeland Security had high confidence in, that the Russians were pushing out the president's false smears on Joe Biden, that document was withheld at the direction of the acting director. So it does no good to say we'll send documents to Congress when they don't send documents to Congress. But more than that, they need to answer questions to be held accountable. Now, I haven't gotten an answer yet, Conan, about whether this new edict from the director is only against briefing the entire House and the entire Senate, and he still intends to brief the committees, or whether it's more than that. They seem to be quite muddled in what they're saying about it, so we're trying to get answers.
Congressman Adam Schiff, Democrat of the Burbank-Glendale area, House Intelligence Committee Chair, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Conan.